Good afternoon. I'm Darla Miles, a reporter with WABC TV Eyewitness News, and I am your moderator this afternoon for Type 2 Diabetes, Regaining Control of Your Health. I hope that you all have enjoyed the Black Health Matters Spring Summit so far. We've had an amazing and dynamic panel throughout the course of the day, and we're especially honored to have Dr. Rochelle Walensky from the CDC provide opening remarks for us this morning at the Riverside Church. But again, this is a hybrid event, and so even if you're not in Harlem enjoying it, we have a distinguished group of panelists for our virtual sessions this afternoon. And at this point, our panelist, who is just a treat, and you're going to enjoy this conversation. And I am very biased to say this is going to be the best panel of the day just by what we have discussed so far. So right now, I'd like to introduce to you a woman who needs no introduction, Epatha Merkerson. She is known to millions of us as Lieutenant Anita Van Buren on Law and Order. She joined the series in 1993 and was there until 2010, really earning the distinction as the longest serving African-American actor in a prime time drama series. Now, for her work there, it's been highly acclaimed. She's won a number of NAACP awards, Image Awards, as well as Emmys for that role. But we also remember her in 2005 when she won both an Emmy and a Golden Globe for her dynamic work with Lackawanna Blues. Now, if you are a Van Buren fan, you probably have migrated over to Chicago Med, and that is where you can find Epatha Merkerson right now. She's been on that show for 7 years so far, and sometimes she has crossover appearances in Chicago Fire and Chicago PD, but today, she is going to share her amazing influence and expertise and insight into type 2 diabetes. Welcome, first of all, welcome. I'm so thrilled. I'm a Law and Order super fan, if you haven't been able to tell.
And I'm a big fan of yours, so this is really lovely. It really is. When I was told you were going to be the moderator, I was like, excellent, because I've always wanted to meet you, so this is great.
So we're gonna not fangirl for you all
Okay.
who watch it.
That's over. That's over.
We're gonna do that later.
Okay.
But this is just again such an amazing treat. I remember on Law and Order when Lieutenant Van Buren was struggling with cancer. And it was a very powerful depiction that you provided for viewers, because again, as a Black woman in position of power, it was still such a silent struggle for you. And there was a little bit of shame with the marijuana that you had to use.
Oh, you did watch
Your symptoms from chemotherapy. So, and that it wasn't necessarily the diagnosis, but your portrayal of what Black women experience after such a significant health diagnosis. What is fascinating that I think a lot of the people on the panel may not realize is that when you received your type 2 diabetes diagnosis, you were on the set of Law and Order in DC, right?
Well, I was at a health convention in
Okay.
DC, and it was about keeping your health up, eating properly, seeing your doctor, going to your community health center, that kind of thing. And so I went around to these different areas. I exercised with one person, I cooked a nutritious meal with another, and Howard University had a table for diabetes testing. And so while the camera was on, they pricked my finger, and I'm like, see, that didn't hurt, and the whole thing. And when the lights went out and we finished that segment, the head of the department came over and said, could you come back when you're finished? And me, I'm thinking he wants a picture or an autograph. And I'm like, sure, I'll come back. And I went back over to the table, and he looked at me very seriously and he said, your blood sugar is very high. Do you know that you're possibly diabetic? And I said, I was so shocked. And that's how I found out that I was diabetic. And after that point, and I knew what the symptoms were, I realized I had all of the symptoms. I was overweight at the time. I have a family history. There was frequent urination. I was always thirsty. Literally, those are some of the signs that you're either pre-diabetic or that you do have diabetes. So it was a shocker.
It was a shocker. And so, just in your journey, well, first of all, I'm going to take a quick break to let everyone who is listening to know that we are taking questions. So, as you hear something that Epatha says, that kind of jogs a question that you may have, go ahead and put them in the Q&A now, so that we can try to get through as many of those questions as possible in real time throughout this panel. One thing I want to touch on, though, is because I think it's notwithstanding of race or health or age, some people, high functioning professionals, or not just high functioning people who have to manage a lot of things in their time, children, work, they ignore their health. And you did not immediately take your diagnosis seriously. There were a couple of years that passed, and when I read the article, when you kind of pinned your story, your doctor pretty much had to tell you you were fat for you to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. My Dr. Mechanic. And I love him because, he had been telling me, he's my endocrinologist. And he had been telling me, listen, you got to start exercising, you got to lose some weight. The weight is helping this diabetes to continue. And 2 or 3 years went by, Darla. And finally, one day I'm sitting in his office and he said, okay, let me do it this way. You're fat. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. We're not that close. Okay. And he went, I don't know what other way to tell you that you need to start seriously taking this diabetes diagnosis to heart. And my entire family has issues with diabetes. My father died at 57 from complications. My grandmother lost her sight. I have an uncle who had lower extremities amputations. But the thing is, and this is so important to everybody, we never talked about it. Grandma, Mama Pearl,
Sugar.
had she had sugar, or she had a touch of sugar. No, it wasn't a touch of sugar, it was diabetes. You know what I mean? And it's so important that we start having those conversations in our families, because it's the family history that can cause you to head in that direction.
Absolutely. With your advocacy of raising awareness of type 2 diabetes in the Black community, do you have any insight with regard to the combination between diet, diabetes, and heart disease, and any physicians or doctors that you may have worked with or come across in your work that might provide additional insight? That's a question that's come up repeatedly in the chat, so I want to make sure I get to that one before we continue.
Well, that's really the issue. These are all the things: family history, obesity, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, smoking, drinking, physical activity. These are all the things that the physicians in my life, my internist, my endocrinologist, these are things that we talk about consistently. A1C, most important, a test that measures your blood sugar in a 3-month period. So you have a sense of how you're progressing or where you need to make changes. Because the thing about type 2 diabetes that I have learned is that it's a progressive disease. So what may happen to you, and especially in women, because our bodies are consistently
Always
changing.
change. Yes.
So your treatment plan may change, but that has nothing to do with anything you're doing wrong. That's just what happens to the body. And this is what my doctors were always saying to me, because sometimes I'd go in, I'd get the blood test, and my blood sugar would be so high. And I'm like, what? I thought I was doing everything right. No, things are changing in your body. Don't be discouraged. And that's one of the biggest lessons for me to learn, was to not be discouraged, to stay on top of it. And when it came to exercise, I mean, I watched my behind grow on Law and Order. Like there was one time in one episode, I turned around and I was like, what is going on?
Mhm.
So I have literally, since the end of Law and Order, I have lost about 30 pounds.
Mhm.
It has made a huge difference in my A1C. And just this past week, I went to see my doctor and I've lost this weight. I'm watching what I'm eating. I'm trying to stay physical. My blood sugar was up. So again, I didn't get discouraged because I know that my body's changing, the weather is changing. I was doing less exercise. Now I'm starting to do more. So, it's important that you really have a dialogue with family, if it's in your family. The second thing, if it is, get tested. It's a simple blood test. And I now wear the continuous glucose monitor that I can check while I'm sitting here. I have it on my phone and I can check my blood
Okay,
sugar
I've
while
seen
I'm
those.
sitting
Yeah,
here.
mhm.
Yeah, you can't see it on my arm, but it's right there.
Mhm.
But it helps me stay consistent and knowing what my blood sugar is in that day and what I should do in that day. But what I was saying is first talk to your family, find out if there's a history, know the physical signs of it, because they really are like thirsty. I could drink a whole gallon of water. I would be so thirsty. Continually going to the bathroom, continuous urination. It's just like maddening how often you have to go to the bathroom. Hunger. Those are all some of the things that you can check yourself on. And if you find those things happening, go see your doctor or go to the community health center. You can always get a test to see where your blood sugar is.
I have a question. So just so women again can everyone identifies with what you're saying. First of all, I think all women identify with not forgiving themselves or not giving themselves permission to not be perfect or not to perfectly address a
Yeah.
health
Yeah.
related issue. So, how long had you been experiencing these symptoms that you ignored? And then, how long was it from the time that you were at that Howard University Health Fair to the time that you actually took it seriously and really started to implement change in your life?
Well, I can't tell you how long I started when I started having
It's a
the
long time.
it must have been because by the time I was checked, my blood sugar was well over 250. That's really high. And and so it was only when I had that diagnosis, and I want to say that was probably around 2000, you know, maybe 2001 or 2002, because I was 50. So it was 2002.
Okay.
And, I had been experiencing lightheadedness. I'd
Mhm.
cross the street and I'd feel like I was like woozy, those kinds of things, having trouble reading because it affects your eyes as well. Um, but when I got back to my doctor and he checked because evidently I had not been seeing the doctor on a regular basis as well, because they would have checked my blood sugar, they
Mhm.
would have known. So there were so many things that I was not doing. And then type 2 is usually comes when you're grown and you got all of these habits. How do you change things that you've been doing all your life? And that was the issue. Because, for me, it was like chocolate, cake, cookies, fries. When I realized at 50, I had been eating like a 12-year-old,
You were lucky.
I
That's
was
you're actually
really,
very lucky to get it to take it that long. Honestly.
is what I'm saying. I'll be
Yeah.
70. I'll be 70 this year.
Look.
But in those 20 years, I have made amazing changes to my diet. Like
So we
now,
we
go
just
on.
got that question. What specific changes that just popped up in the chat? What specific diet changes did you make, and which foods did you stop eating, and what new foods did you add to your diet that you had not been eating before?
Vegetables. That was the main thing. Like something green on the plate every time you sit down.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped eating a lot of fried foods. I stopped going to McDonald's because that fish sandwich was killing me. Fish
Okay,
sandwich and
okay.
fries. I'm gonna sit up here and tell y'all the truth. You know, I still ate like Hostess cupcakes and Twinkies. Oh no, I was horrible. I'm telling you, I think even 12-year-olds ate better than I did. I started cooking more. See, for me, the kitchen used before all of this, the kitchen just had to be pretty. Oh, look. Oh, you have a beautiful kitchen. Thank you. Did I cook in it? No. But
But it was pretty. It was pretty.
it was pretty, and
Mhm.
anybody could go in there and there would be everything they needed to cook in that kitchen. But I would order out.
So basically, you got rid of what we know to get rid of: the high sugary processed foods, and eating more fruits and vegetables, and exercise. And let me ask you this, in because this has also come up in the chat. Have you worked with physicians or come across, you know, how plant-based diets might assist in type 2 diabetes?
You know, I haven't, and people ask me that all the time. When I posted this online, there were quite a few people who said something about vegan diets,
Mm-hmm.
and I know nothing about vegan diets. I had to do what was right for me, and I do like meat. So, you know, there, but what I had to decide was how often I have something.
Okay.
You know, make sure that if you do have macaroni and cheese, you're not eating that macaroni and cheese through the whole week, which, and I
Mm-hmm.
love macaroni and cheese. But cheese, you know what I mean? That'll change my blood sugar, eating too much cheese. But basically, it was for me, the first thing I had to do was cut out all those habits. And I like to have a glass of wine.
How
Well,
hard was that? I mean, because it's, you can't go cold turkey, like you said. You were doing that your entire life. Talk to us about, it's okay to have realistic challenges and setbacks when you're making such a dramatic diet change.
yes, and it's important that you don't punish yourself, because when you punish yourself, then it sets you back. You
Spiral, and you just, yeah.
you know what I mean? It's so important. You know, listen, diabetes is the seventh leading cause of death in this country. So we have to really start having that dialogue. I don't know what the percentage of that is African American, but there are 37 million people in this country that have type 2 diabetes. So it's time for us to really start talking, and knowing that you don't have to punish yourself to do this,
Mhm.
that you can still have a really good meal without putting the salt on it. That was a hard one. Oh, salt and sugar for me was life.
Okay, don't talk about it too much because you're getting too excited now.
Okay. But I'm telling you, Darla, that was a major issue for me,
Mm-hmm.
because I'd get, you know, I'd have a sandwich, processed meat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, bake a chicken, slice the chicken, make the sandwich from that, because you got sugar and salt in that processed meat. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you, a chicken sandwich on some whole wheat bread with some lettuce and tomato, or just one piece of bread, because I don't always
Ah.
use two. That's what I'm talking about. Go up on and grill that chicken without the barbecue sauce and without the salt.
Okay,
We
we're getting everybody, because you got the chat blowing up about the fish sandwiches right now. People are talking about the fish sandwiches in
how
the
bad
chat.
it was for me to eat them.
Okay, so a couple of quick comments I want to share. You look absolutely fantastic for 70. I would have never guessed. Tina says that you look, and then Marsha wants to thank you for the truth. And that's what I wanted to. And someone MR says, love those fish sandwiches.
Oh, I love it.
But I want to know, why has it been so important for you to be so open and candid about your journey with type 2 diabetes?
Because too many of us are having health issues. Too many African American women, African American people in general, people of color. We're having too many uh, negative health issues because we're not eating properly.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to do with information. You know, sometimes if you just tell people the truth, they'll hear you.
Which is why this summit is so important.
Oh,
Which is why.
I can't tell you when immediately when I was approached, I said, "Oh yeah." I really said, "Oh hell yeah." But
I love it. I have to give you this other shout out. Deborah says, thank you. She says she has been diagnosed as a pre-diabetic, and you are telling her story. And you're telling a lot of people's story, which is why it's been so powerful for you to share that. She says this has been very helpful, and she is a Law and Order and a Chicago franchise fan. That is very, very important.
I
We
love
have a lot of comments in the chat. I want to ask you, I want to go back to something in the Q&A that came up. And you also mentioned that you had not been seeing the doctor regularly, and you had not been getting your normal exams. Is A1C checked in a normal physical, or do people have to ask and advocate for themselves?
you have to advocate for yourself. And that goes for anything. Anytime you go to the doctor, the best thing to do, because you never remember, the best thing to do before you have a doctor's appointment, write down the questions you want to ask.
That's great. That's very
Because
helpful.
when you get in there, you're not going to remember. Like, I forgot to ask the doctor one question the other day. And it's like, it's important to write things down. You know, the other I was watching the news one day, and they were talking about the low dose aspirin, and you shouldn't take the low dose aspirin. And that was the question I wanted to ask the doctor, and I forgot. So when I will see him again in a couple of weeks, because you know the blood sugar was high this week, so we're gonna see what what you know, they took the blood. We're gonna see what the results are, and if we have to change something in my program to reconcile that, to make it right. But always write down the questions, because when you're in there, sometimes it's so overwhelming.
And they like to move you fast.
Yes,
They move you
yes,
fast.
yes. So write the questions down.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Do you have another question in the chat about PCOS? Are you familiar with that at all?
I'm not. What's PCOS?
I'm not sure, but whomever asked that question, I would recommend that you contact your local doctor, or maybe contact Black Health Matters, because it was a specific question about PCOS and diabetes. And so I want to make sure I address everyone who has a question in the chat. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And then we had another question.
Polycystic ovary syndrome.
Gotcha.
That's something that they need to contact their doctor about.
Okay.
You know, I'm just a person who lives with type 2 diabetes. There are so many things that I'm still learning, and I would never I'm not, I don't even play a doctor on Chicago Med. So I would never.
Yes, we would not want to. We want to make sure that we give people the proper source for information. But again, I applaud this viewer attendee for having the courage to ask that question. And because this is what we're saying: advocate for yourself, speak up and ask questions. And if we don't have the answer, we can direct you to someone who might be able to. So I would recommend to that person to go to blackhealthmatters.com or to the Black Health Matters website. We have another question in the Q&A. Someone wants to know if you ever dealt with any herbal remedies to treat your type 2 diabetes.
No, I haven't, but I do take herbs.
Mhm,
And again, that's another question that you should take to your doctor,
mhm.
because every person is different, and it's important that you know what's best for you. So I can tell you the things that I take, but it's more important that you find out what's best for you.
Great, great. We only have 5 minutes left. So if you have a few more questions, drop them in the chat. You see, I'm going back and forth. I'm scrolling to make sure
I'm
we get
loving
to
it. You
everything.
working it. You working it, Darla Miles.
I am having a great, great conversation. So forward looking, now you said you're going to turn 70. What does this mean for your type 2 diabetes management? Will it change? You said if you made all the adjustments, you're exercising, you're eating properly, but your blood sugar was still high. So what is your doctor saying now that you've been living with this for almost 20 years?
Well, I have to sit and look at what I've been eating. And
Mhm.
the had how much exercise did you do last week? What and like I said, I like to have a glass of wine sometimes at dinner, and I
Okay.
might have two. But that's the problem. It's the second one. You know what I'm saying? You can't deny yourself, but you have to be careful because there's sugar in wine. And
Yes.
so if you're drinking, that raises your blood sugar.
Mhm.
So, you have to do what's best for you and check. It's funny. One of my oldest brothers, my brother Zephyr, Epatha and Zephyr, um, has type 2 diabetes.
Mhm.
And the thing, it's so funny now, when we have conversation, there is always a moment with how's your blood sugar doing? What's your A1C? Because when he was diagnosed, his was like 8.6, 8.9. Mine was crazy as well. It was like 8.4, 8.5. And now I stay between 6 and 7, which is a good average for a person who's pre-diabetic. Well, that's diabetes when you're over 6. And that's this test that you take, and it's the literal, blood that's taken
Mhm. For
that
sure.
allows a doctor to see what you've been doing. So, you know, it's important to have dialogue with people in your family. If you have a friend, that needs this information, let them know that it's important that they know what their A1C is. It's important what they put in their bodies. It's important how they work their bodies. The exercise is important, and obesity is a major, major cause. And like I said, when I did Law and Order, I just remember that day sitting and watching an episode, and when I turned around, I looked like a cartoon. I was so huge from the back. And it was like, well, maybe this is why. So you asked me earlier, how long did it take? It took about 2 or 3 years for
Mhm.
me to reach a place of sanity with it. Um,
That's fair. That is, and again, this is why this dialogue is so powerful, because a lot of people feel like they go through the same things, but they feel guilty. They don't feel like it's normal. They feel like they should just be able to handle it and it's fine. And that's not the case.
well,
Um,
let me just say this because that's part of the issue. There's a lot of shaming in diabetes.
mhm,
And it shouldn't be. You know what I mean? Don't be ashamed. The thing that you want to do is rectify it. You want to make yourself healthy. And we need to take away that shame because some people have it in their families. So it has nothing to do with maybe the way they're eating.
mhm,
It may be just prevalent in their
mhm.
genes.
Yes. So I want to get to families, but I want to make two more comments here. So first, Colette, I love the chat. I'm loving the chat. Colette said she was going to skip her walk today, but after hearing the story,
Take
she is
that
going to
walk,
take her
girl.
walk. Colette, I'm going to be there with you. My
Take
middle
that
name is
walk,
Colette,
girl.
so I will go and walk with you.
Because the
Dolly
sun is
says,
out. This is a perfect day for that walk.
perfect day, yes. Miss Dolly says that she found out about this from a Facebook post, and she says this is exceptional. So she is thanking you for telling your stories. Betty Richardson says, thank you, S. Epatha Merkerson. I absolutely love you and every show that you appear on. Really appreciate you sharing the capital raw truth. Love you.
Excellent. Excellent.
Um, Deborah says, thank you for your transparency. She is very, very grateful. And I'm just going to pose a final question as we close, because we can't talk about sugar and the Black community without talking about how we navigate our families. Because number one, it's in your family. So either you have a family who, it could be a mixed bag, right? On
Mm-hmm.
how they receive it and manage it. But, moving into the summer barbecue season, is, you kind of know that I love. And, uh, you know, how did you manage your family dynamics? How would you recommend people, manage their family dynamics? Baby, don't worry about that. That's just a little sugar. There's just a lot of shaming, just be honest, with the Black community when it comes to dealing with our health. We're sometimes shamed that we shouldn't be concerned.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you navigate those family dynamics with this kind of diagnosis?
Well, the first thing that I did was I called all of my siblings, and
Hmm.
I was like, have you gone to your doctor and gotten your A1C? What's that?" And I had to tell them. Only one brother knew what it was because he's diabetic as well. Um, and then when we'd have family gatherings, I remember the first time I brought up the subject, I was like, we need to talk about Daddy. We need to talk about Mama Pearl. We need to talk about Uncle Norman. Because they were the extremes of what diabetes can do
Hmm.
without being detected and
Hmm.
without paying attention. So let's start talking about it in the family. Let's, know what all of these things mean and why it's a part of our family and why Daddy died at 57. Because he didn't check his diabetes, he ended up having a heart attack. That's what happens. You get other diseases when you don't control your diabetes. And do not be ashamed of it. Do not be ashamed. The point is that you want to know, you want to make a move, you want to change your lifestyle, you want to be healthy, you want to live. And that's why it's important
That's
to talk to your family.
I think that's a great note to close on. I want to thank everyone for the robust dialogue and the chat, for all of your questions, for your recipes. And the chat actually has some really great information because, as you brought up a few things, people shared what they have experience and what has worked for them in terms of supplements and food and things like that. So I am told that, let's see, you could go to diabetes.org/risk test Chromed. It's in the chat. So if anyone has any supplemental questions, you can go to diabetes.org. I'm sure they have a wealth of information there.
And
And
somebody is here talking about vegan oxtails and fried mushrooms and cauliflower. Okay, Miss Toms.
see, I'm telling you.
Okay.
We were talking, we got a little excited about on the food talk. I'm not gonna lie, we got a little excited.
Indeed.
We
Indeed.
did, we did. But there are ways to enjoy a healthy diet and the flavors and tastes that you want, as well as manage your diabetes. We do not want to let you go. Francis Dixon says, excellent presentation. Thank you for your honesty. Estella says, thank you so much for sharing. Patricia says, thank you so much. This is interesting and informative. Love you as an actress. So everybody loves you.
That's great. I love
Please
it.
please keep killing the game on screen. Keep killing the grain game with your advocacy work. And we just can't wait to have another robust conversation with you. And I want to thank everyone for attending. The chat is going. If I keep going to the chat, y'all, they're going to cut me off.
Thank you for this, Darla, and to
Guys.
Black Health Matters for having this symposium. This is amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again, Deborah, Jacqueline, Colette, Abby, Patricia, the last few chat messages, shout outs. Please enjoy the rest of our day with the Black Health Matters virtual summit and in-person health fair at the Riverside Church. And we cannot wait to see you next time. Have a great day. And thank you. Round of applause, virtual round of applause for Epatha Merkerson.